I was kicked out of my house on Christmas Eve by my own mother. Not for stealing, not for yelling, not even for slamming a door. No, I got kicked out because I had heart surgery and it was too inconvenient to have me around while my sister was hosting her engagement party in the living room. You think I'm kidding? I wish I were. It started with the usual, the golden child gets a diamond. I get a diagnosis. Jenna got proposed to in Aruba Instagram filters, flash mobs and all. I got heart failure at 37. And if you think those two events were treated with equal gravity in our household, you haven't met my family. Jenna's news was champagne and custom cookies. Mine? A tight smile from Mom and a well. That's what happens when you don't take care of yourself. She said it like I'd stubbed a toe, not like my chest had nearly caved in on itself. But the real gut punch didn't come until after surgery. I was still stitched up, bruised, and weak, home for exactly 2 days when Mom told me, in the same voice she uses to ask if I remembered to bring napkins, sweetie, could you find somewhere else to stay this weekend? Jenna's party is just going to be a lot. A lot. Apparently, recovering from cardiac surgery upstairs was just too dark for her vibe. Couldn't have my surgical drains and pain meds ruining the charcuterie board aesthetic. So she helped pack my overnight bag. I'm not even exaggerating, she physically zipped it up. My stepdad, I call him wallpaper, because he's always there and completely useless, just sort of nodded along, sipping his decaf like someone else's daughter was being exiled in front of him. And my sister? She didn't say a word. She was too busy finalizing her guest list. I wasn't on it. I ended up sleeping at a Motel 6 off the freeway. My chest hurt. My dignity hurt worse. I couldn't believe how normal it seemed to them, how utterly acceptable it was to cast me out because my medical trauma was an aesthetic inconvenience. But the signs were always there, weren't they? Like when Jenna crashed my high school graduation with her modeling contract news, and Mom called her the real star. Or when I paid half the mortgage for 5 years secretly through Venmo because Dad's life insurance had run dry, but Jenna got the beach house key for her mental health. Or when Mom made me host Jenna's bridal shower even though I wasn't a bridesmaid. Hell, I wasn't even invited to the bachelorette weekend. You're not really a party person, Mom said. Like my absence was a favor to me. I've spent 20 years being the family's human emotional shock absorber, the backup plan, the helper, the one who makes it all okay, even when it wasn't okay, even when I was breaking, even when my heart literally stopped working. That night in the motel, I watched Jenna's Instagram stories through blurry eyes. There she was, glowing under string lights while I lay in a polyester bedspread with surgical tape on my chest. One post was captioned, "Surrounded by love." I laughed so hard I choked. Surrounded by love. Like I was the one who had somehow wandered off, who had misplaced the affection of a family that was never mine to begin with. I looked at myself in the mirror, pale, patched up, eyes swollen, and I thought, this is what it feels like to be nothing to the people you've given everything to. It wasn't the first time I realized I didn't matter, but it was the first time I decided to do something about it. The thing about being thrown away is that it makes it very easy to stop trying. I stopped texting first. I stopped calling to check in. I stopped offering help. I stopped pretending. That last one hurt the most because pretending was the only thing keeping me tethered to them. Pretending that their silence wasn't violent. Pretending I wasn't the stand-in maid, nurse, therapist, and occasional ATM they never thanked. The first person to notice was my mother, obviously. "Sweetie," she said one morning in a voicemail I didn't return, "you haven't RSVP'd to the wedding tasting. Jenna was hoping you'd help narrow the menu. Not we missed you at dinner. Not how's your recovery going, just panic. Because the gears weren't turning. I used to be the gear. I spent years anticipating needs that were never mine to hold. I kept track of prescriptions, booked appointments, sent birthday cards, settled family fights, like I was born with a gavel in my hand. I was the unofficial manager of this toxic little sitcom. And now? The show was running off script. By January, my mother's tone had shifted. Less honey, more vinegar. "Is this about Christmas?" she asked one day after showing up at my apartment unannounced. I didn't let her in. She stood in the hallway holding a plant, looking confused. It was just timing. You're taking it too personally. Too personally. Like being homeless post-surgery was a clerical error I'd exaggerated. "I'm healing," I said. "And I need space. You always need something." She meant it. She really, truly believed that I was the burden here. I didn't respond. I just closed the door. And here's the thing they never expect. When the scapegoat stops playing the part, the whole family script falls apart. Jenna started spiraling first. She called me from a new number. I'd already blocked the old one, crying about how overwhelmed she was with wedding planning, how Mom was being intense, how she didn't know how I used to do it all. I nearly choked on my tea. Oh, now she noticed. She went on for 15 minutes about fabric swatches and centerpieces and emotional labor. Ironic. She used the term like she'd invented it, like she hadn't been extracting it from me like a resource her whole life. When I didn't offer to help, she asked directly, "Can you please just do the RSVP tracking spreadsheet again? You're so good at it." I stared at the ceiling, counted to 5, and then I said it. No. Silence. She thought the call dropped. Or maybe her entitlement had never allowed for that answer. Wait, what? No, I'm not helping. I'm not involved. You're my sister. Exactly. Not your assistant. She hung up. No goodbye. That was the last time I heard her voice until the next family ambush. Because of course there was one. It came in the form of a casual brunch at Aunt Marcy's. I walked in mostly because I was curious and found my mother, Jenna, wallpaper, and 2 aunts I hadn't seen since the Bush administration sitting at the table like some kind of emotional intervention committee. The tone was faux concerned. "We're just worried about you," Aunt Marcy said, sipping her mimosa. "You've changed. You're so distant," said Aunt Teresa. "It's not like you." "Maybe it's your medication," Jenna offered. "Post-surgical depression is real. They were diagnosing me now. Like my withdrawal was a symptom, not a response." I sat there, breathing evenly, letting them project. I was a mirror. I gave them nothing. Finally, Mom sighed. The sigh. The one she used when I broke a plate as a kid or when I said I wanted to apply out of state for college. "I just don't understand this bitterness," she said. "We've always been there for you." That's when I laughed. It was quiet, short, and cold. The kind of laugh that makes people shift in their seats. "You've been around me," I said. "That's not the same as being there for me." Mom opened her mouth, but I stood up, pulled my bag over my shoulder. "I came because I thought maybe one of you wanted to apologize. But I see now this is just about getting your servant back." "You're being cruel," Jenna whispered. "No," I said, walking to the door. "Cruel was kicking your sister out post-surgery so you could play bride. This is boundaries." I left before they could respond, drove home in silence, let the anger settle like sediment in a glass of water. And then came the retaliation. Oh, not the fun kind. Not yet. No, they retaliated the way cowards do passive-aggressively. A week later, a cousin texted me asking why I hadn't invited her to my fundraiser. I had no idea what she was talking about. Turns out, Jenna and my mom were telling people I was obsessed with attention and throwing fake charity events to compete with the wedding. They said I'd made up my condition for sympathy. Made it up. I had surgical records, medical bills, a literal scar, but none of that mattered to people who needed me to be the villain in their fantasy. So I stopped responding entirely. Blocked numbers. Changed my email. My therapist called it strategic detachment. I called it the first peace I'd had in decades. And in that silence, something new started to grow. Resentment, yes, but also resolve. They took everything from me, time, money, energy, affection, and left me with a scar and a motel receipt. But they forgot something. I knew where the real skeletons were buried, and I had receipts too. There's a kind of stillness that comes when you stop expecting an apology. It's not peace, not at first. It's colder, quieter. But in that silence, you start hearing things more clearly. You start remembering. And what I remembered, mostly, was money. All the money I'd given over the years. Temporarily, they'd say, just until taxes come through. Or you make more than Jenna, it's only fair. I pulled up my old bank statements. I found transfers to my mother's account going back nearly a decade. Rent, groceries, car repairs. A down payment on Jenna's tuition when she lost her scholarship. And weirdest of all, one $7,800 payment labeled family trip refund. A trip I never went on. A refund I never received. I should have stopped. Should have shut the laptop and gone to sleep. But I didn't. Because once you start peeling back the curtain on your own abuse, you either rip it down entirely or you drown under it. So I kept digging, and that's when I found it. It was a folder in my old Gmail, an auto forward from my late father's estate lawyer. I hadn't looked at it in years, but something caught my eye, a scanned copy of his will, the original version. And guess what? It said the house should go to me, not to my mom, not to Jenna, to me, dated 3 months before he died. There it was, in legal black and white. I was supposed to inherit the house, the same house I helped pay off, the same one my mom now called Jenna's forever home. My hands shook. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since college. I called Uncle Ray. He was my dad's younger brother, the only relative who didn't show up at the Christmas party or the brunch ambush, mostly because, as he told me flat out, "Your mom's a snake, and I don't do snakes." We met at a diner the next day. He looked tired but kind. His hug nearly broke me open. "I knew she'd pull something," he said after I showed him the will. "But this is next level." Turns out he had tried to fight for me back then, but my mom told everyone I couldn't handle the estate, said I'd asked her to take over because I was grieving too hard. "Lies," I whispered. "Yeah, but believable ones. You were too quiet back then." "Not anymore." Ray had kept in touch with Dad's old lawyer, who'd gone private but still had all the original documentation. He even had emails my mom sent asking if there was a way to amend the will since it didn't reflect the realities of their financial situation. Reality, in her world, being whatever she wanted it to be. "I'll fund the legal side if you want to fight it," Ray said. "But only if you're ready. Because once we start, there's no going back." There was a moment, a long one, where I thought about walking away. But then I pictured that night in the motel, the surgical tape, the silence, and I realized I'd already been erased. What did I have to lose? "I'm ready," I said. And just like that, the plan began. Ray got in touch with the lawyer. I started compiling every Venmo receipt, every bank transfer, every scrap of temporary help I'd given over the years. We submitted a motion to reopen the estate, citing will manipulation and suppression of documents. And then I sat back and watched. The best part? I didn't tell them. Not yet. No dramatic warning. No storming in. Just silence. Until the subpoena arrived at my mother's doorstep. I didn't see it happen, but I heard about it within hours from Jenna, of course. She sent me a barrage of texts that pinged like fireworks. "What the hell is going on? You're attacking Mom? You're going after the house?" Followed by the cherry on top, "Are you trying to destroy this family?" I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a photo on Facebook. Just one. It was me, in a red dress, standing in front of a table full of heart-shaped candles and fundraiser auction items. Caption, "Healing looks good on me." Within minutes, I was getting likes from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. A few even messaged me privately. One aunt said, "I never realized how much you did for them." Another cousin wrote, "Honestly, proud of you. They were always cruel. The cracks were starting to show." A week later, my mom emailed me directly. No greeting, no signature, just one line. "How could you do this to your own mother?" And that's when I felt it, that first pulse of power. Not the angry kind, not the vengeful kind, but the cold, clean kind. The kind that comes when you finally stop begging people to see your worth and just own it instead. I waited a full day before replying. Then I wrote, "You did it to yourself. I'm just cleaning up the mess." She didn't respond, but Jenna did. She posted a vague status about snakes in the grass and people who pretend to care. It got 3 likes. One of them was her fiancé, the same one who once told me I was lucky to have a sister like Jenna. Funny how fast the narrative shifts when the scapegoat picks up a mirror. The case is moving forward now. The lawyer thinks we have a strong shot not just at reclaiming the house, but at pressing for financial restitution, especially if we can prove long-term misappropriation of funds. Ray's already helping me document it all. It's exhausting, but it's also exhilarating. I spent most of my life cleaning up after people who left messes like breadcrumbs. Now I'm following the trail back to myself, to justice. And if that trail ends with them watching their golden girl lose her forever home and their matriarchs scrambling for sympathy, well, call it poetic, call it karma, call it closure, just don't call it forgiveness. Because I'm not there yet. The court date was set for a Tuesday in early spring. The sky was cold and gray, like it was bracing for impact, too. I didn't dress for war. I dressed like someone who belonged there: black pants, navy blouse, low heels, clean lines. Not flashy. Just undeniable. My mother showed up wearing pearls. Because of course she did. She looked more like she was headed to brunch at the club than to a probate court hearing about whether she'd committed inheritance fraud. Jenna sat beside her, tight-lipped, scanning the room like she expected cameras. She caught my eye. I smiled just barely. She didn't smile back. Our lawyer started with the basics: original will documentation, timeline of events, unexplained account transfers. He laid it all out with quiet confidence, like someone slicing cake at a funeral. Her lawyer stumbled, claimed confusion, intent, verbal clarifications. But then we dropped the emails, the ones where she tried to amend the will, then failed to disclose the original copy during probate. It got very quiet in that courtroom. My mother didn't look at me once. When we recessed, I walked out alone. I wasn't hungry, but I got a coffee just to hold something warm. My hands were shaking adrenaline, maybe, or relief. Ray met me outside, leaning on the rail. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I will be." The ruling came 2 weeks later. The judge didn't mince words: willful suppression of original estate documents, intent to deceive, fraudulent redirection of assets. The house? Mine? Restitution? Pending? Reputation? Shattered. I didn't go to the hearing. I didn't need to. My absence said enough. Jenna posted a cryptic Instagram story the next day: black screen, white text. Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who destroy everything. I couldn't argue with that. Then came the calls. First from Aunt Teresa: "You need to fix this." Then from an unknown number, my mother, probably using someone else's phone: "You've humiliated this family." And then, one I didn't expect, my mother's pastor: "She's deeply ashamed. She's praying every day. Maybe you could meet her halfway? Meet her halfway?" She left me in a motel after open heart surgery so her precious Jenna wouldn't have to share party space with the fourth pole. She stole my inheritance, lied to my face, then smeared me to every cousin and choir friend who would listen. There's no halfway between betrayal and survival. But it got worse. A local paper picked up the court filing. Small town, big mouths. They didn't name me, but they didn't have to. Everyone who mattered could connect the dots. The story used words like dispute and complicated estate, but it quoted the judgment. The phrase fraudulent concealment was printed in black and white. That Sunday, my mother didn't go to church. I only know that because 3 people messaged me about it. "She's devastated," one said. "She cried during communion," another said. "She said you don't return her calls." And I changed my number. That wasn't petty, it was peace. But Jenna, she took a different approach. She showed up at my door, in full makeup, holding a bouquet like she was auditioning for The Bachelor, Redemption Edition. "I just want to talk," she said. I let her in, not because I owed her, because I wanted to see what the lies looked like up close. She perched on my couch like it might bite her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow. "Taking back what was mine?" She blinked. "You're punishing Mom. I'm holding her accountable. She's our mother. She's your mother." I was her housekeeper with a birth certificate. That landed. She flinched. Then she tried to cry. "I didn't know about the will," she whispered. I said nothing. "I swear, I thought everything was fair." "She told me." "I don't care what she told you," I cut in. "What did you see? When she kicked me out after surgery, what did you see?" Silence. "That's what I thought." She stood, walked to the door, paused. "You've changed." I smiled. "That's the point." And then she left. After that, the fallout came fast. First, Jenna's fiancé postponed the wedding. "Family tension," he said in the announcement. His mother, who I'd always liked, ironically commented, "Some things are more important than parties." I almost laughed. Then the bridal registry was wiped, and the venue removed their names from the upcoming events list. Apparently, you can't scam your own daughter out of a house and expect people to just toast champagne about it. The worst part? They still didn't get it. They still thought I was the villain. I saw it in a group chat screenshot someone sent me. Jenna telling a cousin I had lost it after surgery. That I was obsessed with control. That I was never the same after Dad died. She got one thing right. I wasn't the same. Grief doesn't just change you, it strips you. It shows you who clung to you for love and who clung to you for convenience. My mother loved me when I was silent, useful, invisible. Now, I was none of those things, and that's why she hated me. Let her. Let them all. Because the house is mine now, not just on paper but in truth. I changed the locks, repainted the walls, ripped up the old carpet and found hardwood underneath, real, strong, quiet. Just like me. The best part? I'm turning it into something new. A nonprofit event space for women recovering from medical trauma and family estrangement. The first fundraiser is in a month, fully booked. Catering sponsored, local press attending. And yes, I invited the entire extended family. Not to honor them, to watch them, to let them see what I built from the ashes of their cruelty. They can walk through the halls they tried to erase me from, drink champagne they didn't pay for, smile through teeth that once called me dramatic. And when I take the mic to speak, I'll thank the donors, the volunteers, the silent warriors who stood by me. But not them, not even once. I wore red, not because I wanted attention, not because it was dramatic, but because it was the color I was wearing the day I reclaimed my name from their mouths. The day of the fundraiser arrived on a warm Saturday morning in May. The kind of spring day that smells like second chances sunlight on wood, flowers in bloom, wind that doesn't bite anymore. The house looked nothing like it used to. The walls were soft ivory now, trimmed in gold. The living room once where Jenna's engagement party pushed me out was transformed into a silent auction space. Local art on one side, memory wall on the other, framed photos of women who survived what I survived, and a single plaque above the fireplace dedicated to the ones who healed alone. They started arriving around noon. Not the family, not yet. No, the first ones through the door were nurses from the cardiac wing, women from my recovery group, a few coworkers who never asked, "Why don't you just move on?" They brought flowers, cards, hugs that didn't come with conditions. Then the local reporter showed up, the one who covered the court ruling with such quiet precision. She pulled me aside and asked, "What made you want to turn this place into a sanctuary?" I smiled, because I know what it feels like to come home to a war zone when you're already bleeding. She nodded, didn't ask more, just scribbled it down and called it brave. Brave. That word used to feel like a weapon, a word people said at me, not for me. "You're so brave," they'd say, while watching me carry things they handed me. But now, it felt real. And then they came. Jenna walked in first, still blonde, still polished, wearing designer sunglasses indoors like it might protect her from accountability. She scanned the crowd, saw me, and smiled like this was a party we were throwing together. She walked up, no hug. "This is impressive," she said, like she wasn't trying to claw it apart 2 months ago. "Thanks," I said flat. "I told Mom not to come, by the way," she added. But she wouldn't listen. Of course not. And speak of the devil. My mother walked in like she owned the foundation. Pearls again. Same dress from that brunch, like she thought she could rewind time by replicating it. She looked around, visibly trying to gauge who might still believe her version of the story. She stopped in front of the plaque. Read it. Blinked. And then she saw me. I saw her throat move. Like a swallow that stuck. She walked toward me. I stood still. "You've done quite a lot," she said. "I had to," I replied. She glanced at the crowd. At Jenna hovering. At the news camera discreetly rolling in the corner. Then she leaned in like it was a secret. "Maybe we could talk. Privately." I shook my head. "There's nothing private left between us." Her face twisted just a flicker, then reset. "You're still my daughter," she whispered. And I, with a smile cold enough to burn, said, "No, I'm someone you used to underestimate." She stepped back like I'd slapped her. But I hadn't. I hadn't raised a hand. I'd only spoken the truth. That's what burned. I left her standing there and walked to the front of the room. Microphone in hand. Spotlight soft. Voices dimmed. I cleared my throat. "My name is Erin," I said. A pause. A breath. "And I almost died 2 years ago, not just from my heart, but from what was missing around it." The room held its breath. Family is a word people love to use. They weaponize it, like it means loyalty no matter what, like it excuses anything, like it's a shield from consequence. I looked at my mother. She looked at the floor. But here's what I learned. Family doesn't kick you out when you're healing. Family doesn't silence you, steal from you, or pretend your pain is an inconvenience. Family shows up, and if they don't, you build one yourself. Applause. A slow rise of it, not performative, just real. Hands clapping with weight, with knowing. After that, people came up in waves. A woman who'd been through 2 open heart surgeries hugged me and said, "I never told anyone what my sister did, but now I will." A nurse whispered, "They treated you like wallpaper, but you turned into a wall they couldn't knock down." And someone still don't know who left a card on the donation table that read, "I used to think silence was strength. Now I know boundaries are louder." That night, I lit candles on the porch. The house was mine. Mine by law. Mine by love. Mine by truth. It was quiet. No drama, no apologies. No more second-guessing myself at 2 a.m. replaying conversations where I should have stood up but didn't. They never apologized, by the way. Not Mom, not Jenna, not anyone. But here's the twist. I didn't need them to. Because I have peace. Real, bone deep, no waiting for a text back kind of peace. Sometimes it's lonely, but it's clean. And that matters more. A few weeks later, a cousin I barely knew sent me a photo from Jenna's rehearsal dinner turned family-only backyard vows. It looked rushed. Small. No speeches, no applause, no me. Good. They can keep their filtered photos and fake toasts. I've got something better. A life that doesn't demand I shrink to fit it. I'm hosting the fundraiser again next year. Bigger. Stronger. We've already outgrown the space. And know before you ask, they're not invited. Not because I hate them. Because they don't belong anymore. They said I was heartless. But for once, I put my heart first. And it saved me. Story 2, Lisa Crawford is my name, and I am 38 years old. I finally realized my greatest life dream, a contemporary house atop a hill on the west side of Santa Clara with a panoramic view of the Valley of Lights after over 20 years of arduous labor in the building and real estate development industries. At night, every brick, every detail on the ceiling, and every clear glass panel on the south wall were the product of a relentless determination, perseverance, and hard work. This home is more than simply a residence. It is evidence that I have triumphed over all forms of disrespect, rumors, and stereotypes. Tomorrow afternoon was set aside for the housewarming celebration. I had organized every detail to greet friends and coworkers, hired a seasoned event staff, and reserved catering from my favorite French eatery. Those who had accompanied me on this protracted and challenging trip. However, I halted at the front door when I came home this morning to do one more check. I'm still holding the key. Not in the lock yet. I didn't want to hear the familiar voice that came from inside. Now, the voice of my sister Rachel. This seems like the ideal location for a wedding, don't you think? The backyard can accommodate a reception tent, and the mezzanine will be ideal for the stage. Confusion and rage were growing inside of me as I went. The main hall, where Rachel stood, still had the fresh scent of walnut wood floors, in addition to a blonde who I thought was a wedding coordinator. Acting as though this location belonged to them, they were talking animatedly about decorations with soft lighting and white flowers. I calmly but firmly called Rachel's name. "Why are you here?" As if she had won the lotto, Rachel's face glowed as she turned. "Oh, you've returned. I believe my parents informed you that they chose to give me this house as a wedding present. This is where Connor and I will raise our family." I was still. My head was filled with pictures. I was constantly working, surrounded by designs, having restless nights, and modifying technical specifications, only to obtain sufficient funds. To make this ambition come true, I had neglected relationships and given up personal time. Now Rachel, the youngest, who has been lavished with attention and has never had a steady job for longer than 3 months, was seizing my dream as if it were her inheritance. I tried to sound solid as I said, "This is my house. I spent all of my time, energy, and funds on its construction." Rachel smiled at me with the same kind, pitying grin she had worn since high school. "You live alone, though. Such a large residence is not necessary for you." Mom and Dad remarked that if you gave the family any thought, you would understand. Just like clockwork, my folks came in the back door without knocking. My mother went straight to the wedding coordinator and indicated the location of the flower arch. My father stayed out of my sight. "What's happening?" My voice was harsh now as I asked. "Why is a wedding being planned at my house, Mom and Dad?" "Lisa," I knew all too well what my mother was saying in that sweet, cunning voice. "This house is simply too large for a single person, and Rachel is getting married soon. You're constantly occupied, hardly home. We felt that Rachel would be better off living here." I had to lean on the stair railing because I was so overcome with disbelief. I briefly felt as though my own blood had betrayed me. But then my eyes grew cold and I clenched my fists. I couldn't allow them to continue treating my achievements as a present to be given away. Never again. "Now leave my house, everyone." Rachel's mouth opened in protest as her eyes grew wide. However, my father was the first to speak, his voice dropping into that patronizing tone he used when lecturing a stubborn child. "Lisa, don't blow this out of proportion. This is for the good of the family. You're successful. You can build another house anytime. But Rachel is starting a new life. She needs a stable place to raise a family." I let out a dry laugh that echoed through the marble-floored foyer, the same marble I personally picked out in Italy and had shipped here. "You're telling me that because I'm capable, I should sacrifice for someone who won't even try?" Rachel stepped forward, her eyes full of fake confidence. "You just don't get it. This is the first time I'm really serious. Connor and I are trying. Mom and Dad just want to help us start with a solid foundation." A solid foundation. I looked each of them in the eye. "One you didn't even break a sweat for." The air grew heavy. My mom nervously tucked her hair behind her ear, a habit she had when she felt cornered. "Lisa, you seem tired. Let's not argue. Anyway, your father handled the paperwork, right? Legally, it might still be flexible." I squinted. In that instant, it all clicked. This wasn't just a spontaneous overstep, it was a premeditated plan, cleverly disguised as a wedding gift. I didn't hesitate any longer. I walked over to the dining table, opened my laptop, and typed a few quick commands. Then I turned the screen toward them. Here's the full legal documentation. Construction contracts, city-issued building permits, invoices for materials, payments to contractors, all paid from my personal account. And most importantly, I opened a folder labeled Property Deed. Inside was a scanned copy of the ownership certificate under the name Lisa M. Crawford. "This villa legally belongs to me and only me." There is no other name on it, not even our parents. Rachel's lips parted, her face pale. "But Dad said, your dad." I looked at him. Had nothing to do with the permit process. I handled with the Department of Building and Safety myself. I submitted the documentation. I waited for clearance. I handled every communication individually. I even documented contractor meetings if required. I can present all of it in court. The hush in the room was stifling. I stood tall, no longer wavering. I won't let anyone, family or not, take away the work of my lifetime simply because they want a lavish wedding. "Lisa, you can't do this," my mom choked out. "You're ruining this family over a home." "No, Mom," I answered gently. "You're all ruining this family by treating me like an emotionless ATM without waiting for a response." I picked out my phone and phoned a number I had saved long ago. "Hello, Alex. This is Lisa. Send all of the house contracts and documents to my email again, please. I would like copies produced today. Make a call to the security firm while you're at it. Before tomorrow evening, I want all of the locks replaced and the security system put in place." My dad's voice became harsh and low as his cheeks reddened. "You're going too far. A row?" I turned around and spoke in a forceful but calm tone. "When you entered my house and organized a wedding without consulting me, it was the tipping point. When I was viewed as a barrier, the line was crossed. Due to the fact that I am a single person, I have been quiet enough." Clinging to her clothes, Rachel took a step back. "Every other time I interrupted her, I assumed you would give in. You were mistaken." The aroma of the lavender I had planted in the front yard filled the air as I opened the wide front door. "You've got 10 minutes to go. Otherwise, I'll think this is trespassing and take the proper measures." Unable to speak, they stood there. My mother started crying, but I didn't feel anything. Rachel scowled at me as if I were the traitor, and my dad turned away. "Lisa." Her voice trembled as she whispered, "I never imagined you could be that callous." I just shrugged. All I'm doing is defending what's mine. If it annoys you, it might be time to learn how to construct something yourself rather than relying on someone else to do it for you." When they had left, I shut the door. Even though my hands were still shaking a little, I didn't give up this time. This was my life, and I refused to give it up to anyone. My phone began vibrating incessantly with messages from Aunt Patty, Uncle Mark, and my cousin, whom I hadn't spoken to in over 3 years, all of whom had the same message less than 2 hours after I saw Rachel and my parents out. Family comes first. Lisa, stop being so self-centered. I've been referred to as a walking refrigerator. Someone else texted, "You have just one sister." Family relationships cannot be repaired once they are severed, but houses may be rebuilt. I read all of the lines with complete clarity. None of them inquired as to why I was forced to take certain actions. I was the one who put my youth, tears, and sweat into every brick of this mansion, yet no one seemed to care. As the steam rose from the porcelain mug, I put the phone down and poured myself a cup of peppermint tea. I was abruptly reminded of the day I was 14, and Rachel blamed me for losing the jewelry her mother had given her. She was brought to get a new bracelet, and I was grounded for a week, 3 times the price. The situation today was essentially a recurrence, larger and more costly. And I wasn't keeping quiet this time. The telephone rang. "Rachel." I gazed at the display. A voicemail appeared a few seconds after I didn't respond. After hesitating, I pressed play. "Lisa," she said in a mocking tone. "Look at yourself in the mirror. Are you envious of me? It has always been. It's me who has been adored, who is selected as the maid of honor. The grandiose wedding is being held by whom? How about you? You have some documents and an empty house. Nobody gives a damn? Lisa, that's not winning. Loneliness is that." I cut the message short before it was complete. Feeling envious? A phrase that had grown stale in Rachel's repertoire. She believed that my jealousy was the reason I always objected to things. Envious of her pampering. Envious that she was constantly saved by someone. She lived off the generosity of others without ever having to pay for it, which made me jealous. After that, I blocked Rachel's phone in my contacts. The environment became strangely silent after Mom's and Dad's 3 taps. With the afternoon light streaming in through the glass doors, I sat there by myself in the spacious kitchen with its shiny granite counters. It was a comfort to be quiet. Don't ask any more questions. Don't make any more demands. Only myself and the house I defended. I believed that everything had finally calmed down. That is, until letters from family members all around the nation began to flood my inbox. My aunt gave me one, bolded subject line, "How could you thus sabotage your sister's wedding?" Another from an old friend of my mother's who even wrote, "It's unbelievable how domineering Lisa ended up being. You used to make the family very proud." I laughed dryly. As long as they weren't the ones footing the bill, everyone had an opinion. I had trouble sleeping that night. I turned on my laptop and browsed through all of the files related to the villa project, from the initial drawings to each material invoice. I sent a complete copy to my attorney, Alex. After backing everything up to a different hard drive, I gave Alex a call early the following morning. "Hello, Lisa. Your email was read by me. Is something happening? I have to be prepared for everything." I spoke firmly. "I want all of the witness records and legal evidence in case they attempt to claim the house. And in the worst situation, I must know. Can a restraining order be filed?" After a brief pause, Alex answered, "I'll get started. You have a compelling argument with all of the evidence you have presented." Feeling a little lighter, I nodded. The doorbell rang that afternoon as I was going over the design ideas for a new project. A familiar face could be seen on the surveillance screen, Rachel, clutching a brand new white wedding gown, standing beside Connor, the fiancé I had only seen once. The door went unanswered by me. Rachel's attitude changed from optimistic to dramatic as she rang the bell twice more before beginning to knock. I held a cup of now cold tea while remaining seated. An alert from the security system appeared. "The video is fully backed up on the cloud," I grinned. I had concrete walls and sealed doors this time, but I had no idea what Rachel was up to next. In addition to the law, I had proof, and above all, I had myself. Elisa, who refused to be silent any longer, and who would never again allow others to make decisions for her. My lawyer, Alex Parker, who had been with me since the beginning of the villa project, sent me an email 3 days after the heated exchange with Rachel and my parents. The topic line was succinct and straightforward. The restraining order was accepted. I read each bolded phrase as soon as I opened the attachment. A restraining order against Rachel Crawford, Daniel Crawford, and Carol Crawford was formally granted by the Santa Clara City Court, preventing them from approaching any of Lisa M. Crawford's properties within 100 feet. Any infraction would be regarded as a crime, like removing a big weight that had been resting on my chest for weeks. I exhaled deeply. I finally got the protection my house, which I had created with everything I owned, deserved. I asked the security firm to complete the monitoring system and incorporate smart alerts into my phone that afternoon. I even had a face recognition remote-controlled gate built. While the technicians were working, no one from my approved list was allowed to enter. Alex gave me a call. Lisa. Copies of the restraining order and formal notification have been forwarded to all 3 of them. All of the emails and video from that altercation are also backed up. We have enough to go to court if they do anything. Alex, thank you. Sunset spilled over the valley through the glass windows. I murmured. All I want is to live in the place I made and not have to worry about my own family. Believe me, Lisa, they will be the ones keeping an eye on their movements after reading that command. The weekend came sooner than I thought it would. I originally believed the housewarming celebration would be canceled due to the family tension, but it ended up being a lovely and sincere occasion. Only people who really mattered were invited. Coworkers I had known for more than 10 years. Friends from college who used to live with me in little flats. The team of architects who helped make my idea a reality, as well as the kind neighbors who watched the house while I was abroad. My best friend from school, Sarah, arrived first with a vibrant bouquet of yellow tulips. This house is much more beautiful than the representations, Lisa. I chuckled. I would have given up at the permission stage if it weren't for you. The atmosphere soon became animated. The rooms were filled with people. The oak living room with a high ceiling. The kitchen is open and has immaculate white granite. I wanted to start my next project in this completely soundproofed workplace. The sunset spanned the infinity pool as I escorted everyone to the rear. The nighttime air caused the string lights that were strung around the olive trees to start glowing. Looking at this house makes me want to apply for a change of address right now, said one companion. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I owned this place, and I grinned. However, while the guests were enjoying wine and macarons at the end of the celebration, the biggest surprise was revealed. Alex sent a message to me. Rachel was seen alertly close to the property. She is standing at the north corner of the street without going over the restraining barrier, according to camera recognition. I've reported the incident to the local police. I didn't have an obvious reaction. I just turned on the secondary alert system and silently secured the rear door using my phone. Nobody at the gathering took notice. Still, I held up my glass. We continued to talk, still had a radiant smile. Sarah stayed to assist me with cleaning up after the majority of the visitors had departed around midnight. Glistening with lights, she stood on the terrace and gazed down at the valley. Yesterday, I got a call from Rachel's mother. Softly, she said, "She wants me to speak. You're willing to forgive." Said that the entire family is in disarray. You should be the mature one since Rachel isn't eating. I stared at her in silence for a long time before I spoke. What calmed me the most today, do you know? What? That I hosted a party for the first time in my life without fearing that someone would turn up and spoil it? Other than that, Sarah said nothing. She simply gave me a modest embrace. I sat by myself in the reading room that evening, the new design plan laid out on the table glowing in the warm light. This home was no longer only a representation of individual success. It was the victory of bravery and self-defense. I was studying designs for a lakefront home development in my office a week after the housewarming celebration. My phone immediately displayed a notice from the security system when the doorbell rang. Brandon Hayes, a visitor, confirmed his appointment by email. I scowled. Rachel was engaged to Brandon. My parents had made me go to their engagement party a few months prior, but we had never really spoken beyond a quick handshake. I approached the door. In the noon sun, Brandon stood with a slim folder in his well-maintained gray suit. The typical confidence was gone from his face. His jaw was clenched, as though he were carrying something heavy, and his eyes were downcast. Sorry for the unexpected visit, but he murmured in a low, almost raspy voice. I had no idea who else I should speak with. I took him to the living room after moving aside to make place for him. He put the folder on the table like it was courtroom evidence as he sat opposite me in the leather chair. "This residence belongs to Rachel," she told me. He started without looking at me. "Although it was under your name just for tax purposes," she claimed it was a wedding present from her parents. I smiled a little. "She is currently utilizing that tale." Brandon took a deep breath. I trusted her. She was compelling. "However, I began to have doubts after your housewarming celebration when I noticed your name inscribed on the wall of the reading room." I said nothing, allowing him to go on. When I questioned her about the documents, she became evasive. Additionally, I recently learned that she is applying for a sizable bank loan under her parents' names. When I attempted to check our accounts, I discovered several odd activities, including money being taken out and transferred to an account under a real estate firm I've never heard of. Crawford Estates of Luxury. I scowled. The sound of the name was uncannily familiar. Brandon took out a number of printouts from the folder. These are some of her most recent postings on social media. She is promoting herself by posing as a real estate developer and utilizing pictures of your villa. I picked up each page. My stomach turned at each picture. Rachel held drawings in front of my wrought iron gate and grinned as professionally as if she were the principal architect. With the remark, "A space designed by me," another image displayed the kitchen area. Stylish, understated, and ideal for the contemporary family. I straightened my posture. "You mentioned that she applied for loans under your parents' names. Have you have evidence?" Brandon took out other paperwork and nodded. "Copies of the credit applications are shown below. The signatures. They're forged, I think." Trying not to lose my cool, I put the papers down. "Have you spoken to Rachel directly?" She disputed all of this before accusing me of jealousy and claiming that I didn't trust the man I was getting married to. But I believe she's laying the groundwork for something far more significant, Lisa. Not just with me, but also with her investors and your entire family. I got up and went to my own filing cabinet, obtaining a USB disk that I had previously prepared. It included all of the original design files, licenses, building contracts, and legal paperwork. Unquestionable evidence that I was the villa's sole owner and primary designer. "I'll forward these to my lawyer." "Slowly," I said. "Before Rachel gets any farther, we must take action." Brandon nodded, a glimmer of resolution replacing the weariness in his eyes. "I appreciate you not dismissing this." After he departed, I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and composed a single sentence in the body of an urgent email to Alex that included all the new papers. "She's openly defrauding me, not just lying to me. We must put an end to this right now." I had trouble sleeping that night. I sat in the reading room and looked out into the backyard, where the lake reflected the lovely lights. In the past, this mansion stood for achievement and liberty. It was a battlefield now, a location where I had to protect my name, possessions, and dignity from someone who was once my own blood and bone. My phone buzzed later that afternoon as I was finishing up a virtual meeting with my design team for the new project. The screen displayed a security system alarm. There was motion in the main hall. "Entering without authorization." I scowled. Tomorrow morning was the planned time for the landscaping staff. Today, nobody else had access. My heart almost stopped as I opened my phone's camera app right away. Rachel. She was in my living room, waving about the room with an iPad while she talked. A group of 8 or so well-dressed people, maybe investors or prospective customers, were taking notes around her. "As you can see, my firm, Crawford Luxury Estates, is developing a number of luxury villas, this being the first." Rachel's voice was blatantly confident as she spoke. "I created this mansion from the ground up. During the pre-sale stage, early investors will be eligible for special bonuses." I nearly dropped my phone. She was posing as the developer, designer, and even using my identity to commit fraud while doing an investment tour inside my home. I made the decision without hesitation. I called 911. "Police Department of Santa Clara. How may I assist you? Someone has broken into my house and is exploiting my personal belongings to make illicit investment requests. 42 Hillside Drive Villa is the address, and Lisa Crawford is the registered owner. My security system is recording the whole incident, and I have a restraining order that was authorized by the court." I heard police sirens arriving less than 10 minutes later. Rachel was still babbling in front of the group on the screen of my phone. She froze, however, as two cops in uniform entered. Officers. Stay put, everyone. Rachel Crawford is who? Turning, Rachel forced a grin. Is anything wrong? You are suspected of financial fraud, illegally utilizing property you do not own, and breaking a restraining order. You must accompany us so we may interrogate you. No, Rachel said, her voice breaking. This is a misunderstanding. I was simply showing the project to my family. However, the visitors those possible investors were already turning away. Their faces changed from bewildered to furious. A guy asked loudly, "Hold on, this isn't her residence." She claimed to be the principal developer. At that point, I opened the front door and entered holding a copy of the property and the deed. I apologized for any confusion in a cool but angry voice. You just heard a falsehood, and I'm Lisa Crawford, the only legitimate owner of this house. Rachel wriggled while being held by the officer. Her eyes began to well up with tears. In front of all these people, what are you doing? I looked down at her and said, "It's not me. It's required by law." I look around the gathering. I strongly advise everyone to double-check facts before investing. She has no approved development projects and no legal business of her own. As the cops brought Rachel out to their vehicle, she is being investigated for financial fraud, trespassing, and impersonation. Neighbors across the street were observing, some of them sitting on their porches, perhaps attracted by the flashing lights and sirens. I went back inside, closed the door, and let out a long breath. The truth was finally out. After that episode, I assumed things would settle down, but my mother contacted Lisa a few hours later. "Are you insane?" She let out a cry. "In front of everyone, you had your own sister arrested. Our family's reputation is damaged." After a few seconds of hesitation, I gave a solid response. "I told you that I would no longer allow anyone to take advantage of my labor, not even relatives." She began to weep after choking. "Your sister cannot be subjected to this. Her only goal is to create a future for herself by robbing investors, posing as me, and seizing my house." I was direct. "You're picking the wrong side if you stand up for her." There was no farewell when the call ended. I gazed at the screen as it dimmerized. My chest is hollow. I sent Alex all the proof that evening. Brandon's statement, social media posts, security footage, and the deed copy. I typed a message. "We are proceeding with the legal action. Include financial fraud, trespassing, and impersonation." I was called to the Santa Clara Police Department to help with the inquiry 3 days after Rachel was arrested for conducting an illegal investment tour at my property. I met with the case's detective, Paul Ramsey, in a tiny conference room, an open laptop with surveillance footage already set out and a big file. "For what you're about to hear, Lisa, I need you to remain composed." His voice was slow and solemn as he spoke. "We think Rachel's behavior extends much beyond a single phony tour. A far more extensive fraud scheme is being uncovered by the inquiry." I nodded while clenching my hands beneath the table. "We have found that Rachel created a false identity using your social security number, your professional credentials, such as your real estate license and project experience, and surveillance video, as well as evidence from her fiancé Brandon, and defrauded investors. She has spent nearly 8 months pretending to be you." I opened my lips to speak, but nothing came out. Ramsey bent over. "She sent a slew of emails to investors pretending to be you. These individuals believed they were speaking with Lisa Crawford personally. Together, the prosperous Santa Clara developer and others transferred more than $2 million into an account using the fictitious Crawford Luxury Estates organization." I suppressed a breath. $2 million. Incredibly so. Ramsey produced a few bank statements that highlighted the transactions. Several states contributed these monies. Within 6 months, she guaranteed 20-30% returns. Displayed ideas for opulent villas that were really pictures of your house. I was having trouble breathing. "How about my parents? Were they aware?" Detective Ramsey gave a slow nod. "We think they knew, at least in part. We discovered a number of loan applications, investment agreements, and Daniel and Carol Crawford's signatures among the papers taken from Rachel's house." "The bank says," Rachel's fictitious business was given a $750,000 loan secured by their signatures. I felt as though I had been sprayed with freezing water. My throat became parched. My heart fell. Do you mean that they are complicit? We have not reached a definitive decision, Ramsey stated. They may be regarded as victims of Rachel's deception if they signed such agreements under the mistaken impression that the business was authentic. They may be prosecuted as co-conspirators, though, if they signed knowing Rachel was posing as you. I felt the weight of everything crumble as I lowered my head. Despite their lack of support, the family I had worked so hard to keep safe could suddenly be on the opposite side of justice and truth. With greater tact, Ramsey stated, "We need you to confirm one thing. Have you ever given Rachel permission to exploit your name, private data, or assets for financial gain?" I gave him my full attention. Never. Not once. He gave a nod as though he had anticipated that response. Thank you. That is really beneficial to us. The investigation will be extended, and the case will be forwarded to the financial crimes section of the county. Given the extent of the deception and phony identity, Rachel may spend a number of years behind bars. Additionally, if your parents are found to have participated, they will also be held legally accountable. Long after the interview was over, I sat silently. My phone glowed with dozens of unread texts as I arrived to my car. My mother gave me one. The pressure your sister is experiencing is beyond comprehension. She's in a panic. Are you unable to drop the charges? Forgiveness is a key component of family. I didn't answer. I sat down at my workstation that night, opened my laptop, and composed a quick email to my lawyer, Alex. The media support body is urgently needed. If the public reacts negatively, we must be ready for it. I am prepared to release a press release. I don't want anyone else to become a Rachel victim. First thing tomorrow, let's plan. Before getting up to get myself a drink of water from the kitchen window, I pushed send. In the distance, the city lights glowed serenely, as though nothing had occurred. However, I was aware that the fight was far from done. And I wasn't simply guarding my villa this time. I was using every last bit of my youth to defend my name, my reputation, and the life I had created. I got a call from St. Luke's Hospital 3 days after the police meeting. A nurse on the other end of the line gently told me that Rachel was 3 months pregnant and on the maternity ward after being admitted to the emergency room due to acute stomach discomfort. I went cold. Nobody had brought up Rachel's pregnancy, not even Brandon, who had recently called off their engagement. It was a shock to the chest to hear the news. I knew my mother would use this as her last resort, not because I was concerned about her. In fact, my mother contacted Lisa less than an hour later. Her voice faltered. Not the same as previously. Your sister? She is expecting a child. She's struggling. According to the doctor, the infant may be impacted by her emotional condition. I remained silent. Lisa, you've already won. The world, your career, and your home are all on your side. What else are you in need of? After losing everything, your sister is now expecting a kid. Are you sure you want to put her in jail now? I inhaled deeply while maintaining a steady tone of speech. You mentioned that Rachel had lost everything, Mom. However, you overlooked one point. Life is not what she is clinging to. It's untrue, as well as the infant. You should let justice play out if you genuinely care about the child. No one may use stolen funds and a false identity to rear a child. My mother started crying on the other end. Lisa, you're so unkind. No, Mother. All I'm doing is breaking a lengthy pattern of enabling, concealing an unreserved pardon that ultimately resulted in treachery. My voice tightened a little as I stopped. How many loan documents did you sign on Rachel's behalf? Are you aware that there is now an ongoing inquiry into your name? You are the one bringing this family to its knees with unquestioning confidence, despite your accusations that I am harsh. There was no farewell when the call ended. There was a legal storm the next week. At the preliminary hearing were police officers, prosecutors, and even representatives of the investors who had been cheated. As the critical witness, I was called. In order to gain the trust of investors, Brandon also stepped out and provided all of the emails, texts, loan paperwork, and most importantly, testimony that Rachel had personally instructed him to pretend to be one of the company's co-founders. Rachel was uncooperative during the inquiry. She maintained that this was a sisterly misunderstanding and said she did it all to start her own company. She even sobbed as she went to her lawyer at one point, accusing me of being the hypocrite who was attempting to ruin my own sister because she was envious of someone else's happiness. The judge remained unconvinced. The courtroom was crowded with press victims and reparation seekers on the day of sentence. Rachel, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, was escorted inside. She had previously attempted to use her hands chained in front of the tummy that now held the kid as a way out of jail. With my back straight and my eyes fixed on the judge, I sat in the front row. Court of Santa Clara County. The judge's voice echoed as Rachel Crawford, the defendant, was found guilty of financial fraud, identity theft, and unlawful trespassing following a thorough examination of the evidence, witness statements, and bank records. Damages total more than $2 million. 10 years in jail is the defendant's sentence. There was a moment of silence in the room. Rachel's eyes were devoid of resistance when she gazed up. There was nothing but nothingness. Brandon sat silently behind me, his head lowered. That was not the end of it. Since my parents' signatures were on loan paperwork and helped to validate some of the financial transfers, the court went ahead and read the punishment for them. They were regarded as indirect collaborators. However, they were given 3 years of probation and sentenced to pay $150,000 in civil penalties because of their cooperation and spotless records following the allegations. I had a peculiar lightness instead of happiness or rage. It all started that night when I entered the villa. I gazed up at the starry sky while perched on the patio seat. The aroma of freshly blossomed lavender wafted through the air. A chapter seemed to have finally come to an end. No commotion, no festivity. Only calm after the storm. It buzzed on my phone. Alex sent a message. "We got it all back, Lisa." Well done. Not everything was typed back, but at least I followed the correct procedure this time. I placed the telephone on the wooden table and turned to face the future. There was a fresh chapter to be written, one that would be free of shadows, irrational expectations, and hollow promises. I stood on the rooftop patio of the villa 6 months after the sentencing, sipping a glass of white wine while admiring the well-kept garden below. The stone walkway was lined with rows of vivid purple lavender flowers in bloom. Everything had altered just as I had originally imagined in my initial concept. Not simply the surroundings, but also who I was on the inside. Several local newspapers had featured the tale of Rachel's deception on their top pages. I first thought the controversy would seriously harm Crawford and Hartman, my company's image. Progress. To my amazement, however, the reverse occurred. Clients and partners saw me differently because of my openness, strength, and decisiveness in standing up for my rights and exposing the truth. They stretched out rather than retreated. New contracts flooded in, ranging from commercial art space hybrids I had never dreamed of to affluent lakefront house projects. The media started referring to my villa as a representation of contemporary women's tenacity in the building sector, and the local council asked me to speak at a seminar on sustainable design. And I made the decision to take that as more than a casual compliment. I started holding charity functions at the house that had been the focal point of the fight. The New Ground Foundation, which helps women entrepreneurs in the building and architectural industries, was the recipient of the inaugural. In the past, women like myself had to fend for themselves without mentors. I sent an invitation to everyone who had supported me during my lowest points. Friends, coworkers, and even Brandon, who, in the end, had made the decision to speak up when the time was right and didn't turn around. My lifelong closest friend, Sarah, was at my side the whole time. "You know what, Lisa?" she muttered after my little speech. "Everything would have been different if you had given up at that time. But now, look at you. You built more than simply a house. You constructed a memorial." I grinned. Not a monument, just a fresh start for a life that no one else gets to lead. I received an invitation to present at the statewide Urban Development Conference the following month. I decided to convey the truth about the times rather than discuss achievement. I was undervalued just for being a woman in the field, for standing up to the family that attempted to destroy all I had worked so hard to achieve. A lengthy wave of applause marked the completion of the speech. After that, a senior architecture student came up to me with bright eyes. "You gave me hope that I, too, might rise beyond social and familial standards." Thank you. My eyes filled with tears as she spoke. It's because I was that girl once, not because I'm unique. I am now a living example of your ability to uphold your moral principles without compromising your honor in order to appease others. I was sitting in my reading room one Saturday afternoon, going over the paperwork for a piece of property in northern Santa Clara, a fresh endeavor. For single mothers, Everlight Villas is a series of environmentally friendly residences, reasonably priced while maintaining the greatest functional and design requirements. Alex entered with a bundle of papers. The first phase proposal was accepted by the infrastructure board. Placing the papers on the table, he spoke. It's the fastest they've ever agreed. With my gaze firmly fixed on the map strewn across the table, I nodded. For women who believed they had no place, I want this to be a new beginning. He gave me a serious look. You've managed to keep your heart intact despite everything, Lisa. It's stronger now, though, and harder to push about. I chuckled as I now understand my limits and what I will never allow anyone to cross, not even relatives. The space became softer, beyond the window. Sunset rays poured through the drapes, made the sky shine orange, illuminating the new patterns with a golden glow. Not only architectural blueprints, but a lifelong blueprint. Clear, rooted, and devoid of room for manipulation. Before the sun had dried, it was a morning in early October. The front stone stairs were covered in dew. In my mailbox, I discovered a cream-colored envelope. No address for return. Only the penmanship was familiar. Lisa Crawford. For a minute, I remained still. My chest began to feel heavy. I was certain of its author. I carried the envelope into the reading room and sat near the window, where a delicate gold streak of early light flowed in. The table still smelled of warm chamomile tea. I used my bare hands to open the mail, without reluctance but not in a hurry. I don't know if I even deserve to call you sister anymore, Lisa, but I hope you'll read this all the way through if there's even a memory left between us. I will become a mother. It's a female. She is healthy, according to the doctor. Last week was the first time I felt her kick, and I started crying like a kid at that same moment. I wanted to do something correctly for the first time in my life, not because it hurt. I am aware that no amount of apologies can undo the harm I caused to you, your house, your reputation, and the faith you once had in our family. However, I'm making a gradual effort to change. Every day in prison is a struggle with myself. No pretense, no makeup. I recognize the void I've been enduring for a very long time. I don't need your forgiveness, but I want to be able to tell my kid about you if she ever asks about the first woman in our family to have the guts to advocate for herself and build a profession out of nothing. Lisa Crawford. I wish you tranquility. And if you can't forgive me, at least think that I'm genuinely trying to change this time. Rachel. I carefully folded the letter and put it in the file cabinet's bottom drawer, which is where I store items that are out of date but yet not quite ready to be thrown away. I had no idea how I felt. Not rage, not pardon, not even grief, just silence perhaps, like being perched on a precipice. Don't be afraid. Nothing except nothingness. I strolled into the rear garden that night, my typical peaceful spot. Following a hard day, I received a call from Sarah inviting me to Monterey for a weekend break. Yes, I replied. Before going to bed, I thought I deserved a break. I took out my notepad, turned to the Everlight Villas project's first page, and wrote another check mark. Next month, there will be a groundbreaking ceremony. I grinned as I glanced at the fountain pen line. Life continues. More work has to be done. Houses that are awaiting construction. With faith instead of cash. Have faith in resilience. In myself and in justice. I doubt that Rachel will ever change for the better. Although I know that forgiving does not imply forgetting, I'm not sure if I will ever be able to look at her without recalling all that transpired. Refusing to let the past to confine your present is what it means to be forgiving. Furthermore, I no longer feel bad about living my life as I see fit, even though my relationship with my family may never be considered reconciled. In order to preserve what I can create, I've learned to let go of what I cannot control. Similar to this property, it's more than simply a house now. It serves as a reminder that there are things you have to fight for, and times when you have to have the courage to refuse, to keep your light safe. I was awakened by the sound of birds outside my window the following morning. The sun was coming up, calm, steady, similar to me. Right now, I started planning my next presentations on the screen after pouring myself a cup of coffee and opening my laptop. My company's new phrase, which I had placed underneath the emblem, was quite noticeable. You are the one who will succeed. Keep your light shining brightly. And I was aware that I was experiencing that reality on a daily basis. My own experience has taught me that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who cause us the greatest pain. However, that same suffering taught me how to stand up for the principles and outcomes I've fought so hard to achieve. To forgive is not to forget. It entails making the decision to keep going on without taking on the burden of others. You don't need anyone's approval to succeed. You only need to be aware of your identity, your actions, and your motivations. The light you made for yourself cannot be taken away by anyone. How do you feel about Lisa's path and her decisions? Please leave a comment below with your opinions. And remember to follow the channel to avoid missing any more moving and motivational tales about family and life.